Hi guys, one of my pieces of advice has always been to listen to experts over politicians, as the former risk ruining their reputation if they're wrong, while the latter, well, if they lie enough, they can become Prime Minister. Another is to be skeptical of simple solutions to complex problems. So it was very disappointing to hear the idea of just deporting foreigners in British prisons as a solution to overcrowding. This was repeated by Brexit Hardman Steve Baker, where he agreed with the ridiculousness of comparing the ECHR to a religion. Have a listen to this.
There is a very obvious thing that you could do to stop overcrowding in prisons in this country, and that is the fact that we've got about 12% of the prison population foreign nationals. Why don't we deport all of those?
Well, we absolutely should deport them, and this is where the ECHR has gone too far.
Okay. It's nothing really to do with the ECHR, it's to do with the countries. Deport these people to where? So you say 12% of the population of the prisons is foreigners. Okay, deport them to where? Because you need two things. First of all, you need a country to deport them to. And second, you need an agreement with that country. Because, you know, some countries may take people back, but they're less likely to take back somebody who has been involved in some sort of crime. Now, we don't know if these people are involved in the crime in Britain or the crime abroad, or both. Because there's a risk that if you send somebody back to some regime, their life is in danger, even if they committed a crime there. Because crimes, you know, may be more severely punished in other countries. And the UK has signed up to international agreements to protect people. It's not just the ECHR. So, once again, deport them to where, and what agreements do you have in place?
So the convention rights are very sensible and a bulwark against tyranny, but the problem is the right to a family life gets overinterpreted, and that is a problem. And, we've gone to and fro about it. It's become one of the main issues of the Conservative leadership contest. But, yeah, this government's got the massive majority. If they want to amend the laws so that those prisoners can be deported, then they...
It's nothing to do with the law. It's to do with where you can send them. A massive majority in the House of Commons is not going to magic up an agreement with a country. It's not going to allow the government to force people to be sent to a country if that country is not willing to take them back. So, see, they keep focusing on the ECHR. Oh, if we get rid of the ECHR, we can deport people. In some ways, perhaps, but in other ways, you can't. Once again, if you don't have an agreement with the country, or you do have an agreement, but this country says, no, we're not taking these people back, then what do?
They should do so, yes.
Is there an appetite for that, do you reckon?
I don't think there's an appetite on that particular issue in this government, because I think that the Labour Party has made the Human Rights Act, which incorporates ECHR law into our domestic law, a sort of item of faith. It was something passed by the new Labour government.
An item of faith? Who is this idiot? An item of faith. It's part of UK law. Now, once again, we have this guy who probably never heard of the Good Friday Agreement, and we have Steve Baker, who used to be a Northern Ireland Secretary of State, Northern Ireland Minister, who obviously knows about the Good Friday Agreement, and he knows why the Human Rights Act is important in relation to the Good Friday Agreement. And they're describing it as like a religion. The Labour Party don't want to get rid of this because they're tied to it in some religious way. No, because they understand it's part of an international agreement.
Keir Starmer, as a human rights lawyer, is very loyal to it, and I think that it's almost a kind of a shibboleth, a kind of ideological fixation that they have with the ECHR, and I'm not sure that they're going to move anywhere on that.
This is a really dangerous point then, because if it becomes a shibboleth on both sides, we could end up just losing a sense of all reason and proportion and what we're trying to achieve. Right. The issue here is we need to deport foreign criminals. We need to stop illegal migration. That's the policy goal. Yeah. Leaving the ECHR ought not to be a policy goal. It ought to be something we may or may not have to do in order to get what we want. And it's becoming a shibboleth on both sides. And we might end up just missing the objective, which actually the public share.
What public share? The public share about deporting people to places that you can't deport them to? See, the problem here is with the Conservatives is that they believe that the public care more about immigration than anything else, which is not true. Polling consistently has pointed to, first, the cost of living crisis, and second, the NHS. Those are the priorities of the public. Immigration is not a priority. But for the Conservatives, they've been trying to brute force it into a priority. Talk constantly about immigration. Talk about how we need to leave the ECHR. We need to strip away protections for British people in order to deport a few people. They said we need to spend £750 million on Rwanda to eventually send 4 people there as volunteers. Is there an impact assessment on leaving the European Convention on Human Rights? You know, I keep coming back to this point. Who would safeguard the rights of British people? The Tories? Steve Baker? Robert Jenrick? Kemi Badenoch? Are these the people who would safeguard human rights in Britain? Because that's what they're suggesting. They say, vote for us and we'll strip away these protections, these international protections to human rights. But don't worry, we will protect them. Does anyone honestly believe they would? Anyone have that much trust in Robert Jenrick or Kemi Badenoch? If they do, they need their head examined. So, look, I don't believe the UK is eventually going to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. The Tories have been banging on about this since about 2012 or 2011. It's going nowhere because they don't have a mechanism to replace it. They have no way of resolving the problem of the Good Friday Agreement. And they would be happier to see a united Ireland, which would take the problem off the table, than actually try to work something out. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.